Did you ever think you'd hear somebody say that Chris Stapleton and Chris Cornell have something in common? The reason why I'm sharing this is just occurred to me because I was listening to a song by Chris Stapleton and I was like, that sounds like Chris Cornell. That sounds a little bit like what he's doing, intentionally or not. But if this is why we kind of listen to other singers, is not necessarily to try and sound exactly like them, because we're never going to sound exactly like them. Everybody has different genetic makeups. The shape of your vocal tract has so much to do with your voice. But can we do things to shape our vocal tract and maybe a couple of other things so that we can sing in these styles of songs with a little bit of rasp and sing a little bit higher by doing specific things? But first, we're going to listen to Chris Stapleton, but we're not going to listen to him sing. First, we have to listen to him talk to the crowd. So this is at Farm Aid, and we're going to listen. We're going to go, what is he doing? We're going to try and really analyze this, because when we analyze great singers, their tone and kind of the way they're shaping the vocal tract and some other things that we're going to get into, these things will help us to be able to manipulate our voice to sing better, not specifically just to sing and sound like them, because we don't want to do that. It's going to, if we try that, sometimes it can be just like, okay, you're just taking somebody off, and it can feel and sound silly in some ways. But sometimes we have to start a little bit silly to see what they're doing. But anyway, let's listen to this and try and figure out what he's doing. And can I shape my vocal tract and do other things that he's doing to kind of try to sound a little bit more like him? So let's listen to this.
Is everybody having a good time tonight?
So if you listen to that sound in his voice, if I was to try and talk like that.
Is everybody having a good time tonight?
Is everybody having a good time tonight? If I was just to sing that normal, is everybody having a good time tonight? Doesn't sound anything like him. But there's this particular shape. Is everybody having a good time tonight? So what am I doing? I'm kind of trying to open up my vocal tract to get a bit more resonance. And that's what he has that's so brilliant. He also has this little bit of rasp in there. Yeah, it almost sounds like it's down here. Is everybody having a good time tonight? No, it doesn't sound exactly like him, of course, like I said. But let's move on to the next little phrase.
I want to tell you who you're looking at up on the stage.
I'll tell you who you're looking at. You hear that? I'll tell you who you're looking at. It's like this weird kind of, if I shape my voice like that, that sounds a little bit funny. But when he does it, it's just like, yeah, it's Chris Stapleton. It sounds like him.
Back here on the bass.
Now, that's a good little bit of gritty as it. Back here on the bass. Back here on the bass. Back here on the bass. Now, it's not, I'm kind of overdoing it there, but there's a little bit of that kind of.
Up on the stage.
A little bit of that.
Back here on the bass.
Back here on the bass. So he's got that little bit of rasp in there. Back here on the. So I'm kind of, that's too much kind of compression in the vocal folds. Compression meaning you have the TA muscles on the side of you. It's part of your vocal folds, and it closes them, right? So when you press a little bit too hard, it stops the resonance from flowing through. But he has this brilliant resonance.
Back here on the bass.
We want that kind of flow. Back here on the bass. That's a little bit closer. Back here on the bass. Rather than what I was doing with back here on the bass. Back here on the bass. That's just kind of too. It doesn't have that little airflow, that little raspy. Back here on the bass. A little bit of a crack there even. Back here on the bass. Back here on the bass. Back here on the. Anyway, let's move on.
keeping it low down all over the place.
It's keeping it low down all over the place. Yeah. There's this, I'm kind of really trying to shape this, but, there's a lot of space there. He's keeping it low down, he's keeping it low down. I'm doing something else that I'm not going to get into until we get into where Chris Cornell, but this is something that a lot of great singers, they do, whether or not they're thinking about it or they're just doing it naturally or whatever. But it's something that I've noticed that I find, particularly in myself, when I do this particular thing, it makes singing in the higher regions a lot better, a lot easier. You can put more power into the high notes, but let's get back to this.
He come from Elkhorn City, Kentucky.
He come from Elkhorn City. See, I have to start with that flow. He come from Elkhorn City, Kentucky. Is that where he came from? Kentucky? When you're using false fold distortion, it requires more air. But you also, because you're phonating, he comes from Elkhorn City, Kentucky. If I was to lean into the airflow. Oh, yeah. It kind of, you lean into the airflow and the false folds, which are above the vocal folds, very important. Those are rattling. Anyway, let's move on because I think it's important to kind of, I mean, I know when someone's speaking and singing, there can be differences, but he's kind of speaking here, which allows us to really kind of gauge how he's applying that singing voice to his speaking voice. Because if I've heard other interviews of him, and when he's speaking, there's kind of a little bit of that kind of sound to it, but not a lot. Not like when he's singing or speaking in this case.
His name is JTQ. Make him welcome now.
Make him welcome now. You hear that? Like if you went to do that now. Like if I said, make him welcome now, it's not going to sound anything. Make him welcome now. There's like this sound in the back. Make him welcome now. You hear that? It's almost like I'm trying to have like a tennis ball like shoved in the back. Make that space really big there. There's this constriction that's going on here as well. This pharyngeal constriction coupled with that big open space in the back. Make him welcome now. So with all of this, I'm not suggesting that we do this and, try to sing like him, but what's happening there is that pharyngeal constriction helps you to sing in the higher notes because you're constricting the airflow. So it's ineffectively, it's almost like an SOVT, like people that blow in the bubbles or like that. It's creating some back pressure. If you do it right, above the vocal folds, it's creating some back pressure above the vocal folds. So you have a balance in pressure above and below the vocal folds. Make them welcome now. Oh, so you can really, you can, if you have that constriction there, it's not allowing you to blast a bunch of air through your vocal folds and then causing you to crack. And like that's generally what happens when you're cracking. You're just blowing your vocal folds apart. You're blowing too much air and then kind of cracking, or you're also it's a imbalance between the CT muscle, which stretches the vocal folds, and then the TA muscles, which are kind of clamping down. So there's that imbalance there, and then they break apart. And So if you go, now make them welcome now. There's also something you'll notice when you flip on purpose, like that, or you crack. But it kind of helps if you're doing this on purpose. If you're flipping like now, you notice there's this flip into a kind of a weakened version of your voice, and it also goes into the nasal passage more. Now, I mean, it's not completely coming just through my nose. Now, there. Okay, so you can blow that sound for so long, and then until it stops, the airflow stops. So let's move on back to listen to some more of this, because it's really interesting to hear how if you start trying to talk like that, make them welcome now. I mean, it's just his natural singing voice, but if I start to talk like this, you can feel that space in the back. It just resonates in a totally different way than my normal voice. And so why is this important? Because if we start to apply some of that to our normal voice, like opening up the resonant space in the back, and up in our nasopharynx, like this sound up here, like that's I'm not kind of leaning towards his sound like that, but it's helping me to create more of a space, more of a resonant space, so you get like a bigger sound out of your voice. You get effectively it's like singing in the bathroom or something. Like you go sing in the bathroom, sounds great because there's this big resonant space. Everything's bouncing off the walls. If you can make that space in your throat and in the back of your mouth, all of that there like that, there's more resonant space. So even though I'm not like shaping it like he does, there's more resonant space. Like that's more kind of how he sounds, because there's more pharyngeal constriction. You hear that? It's almost like So there's a lot of constriction going on in there. It's like I've done a video about this, about the epiglottis. If you close the epiglottis down, like you're gargling, helps you to get higher notes because it's acting like an SOVT. It's balancing that air pressure above and below the vocal folds, which is very important. The vocal folds are very thin. They're about as thick as your fingernail, or thin as your fingernail. And they don't need a lot of air to vibrate. In fact, the less air, the better. And like all my private students know this, because this is like most people have this thing where they're blowing too much air, and they don't understand that you don't need that much air. But everybody is kind of used to singing in a certain way, or you see people singing either live or on the internet. You see YouTube vocal coaches, and like, trust me, I watch them all too, and you see them and they're putting a lot of effort. Like there's all this breath being blown out. And number one, that's really inefficient, because you're losing all of the air that you have breathed in, right? So you can't sing as long of a line. And then the other thing, it's not as resonant because you're blowing so much air that the vocal folds aren't really, they're fighting to try and come together. So they don't have the resonance that they would if you just backed off the volume.
Back here on the drums.
Back here on the drums. You hear that? Back here on the drums. There's a back here on the drums. There's that kind of, like, if I do it, it sounds silly, right? Of course. But like you listen to him and you go, wow, he's Chris Stapleton. Of course. This is amazing.
Sure enough, having some fun.
Sure enough, having some fun. He's got that. Sure enough, having some fun. Sure enough, having some fun. Yeah, I'm trying to combine the two. That sure enough, having some fun. Because there's some support required to get that grit a little bit more powerful in there. support is so key to singing that if you're not singing with proper support, then nothing else will work. So I put together a course called Kickstart Your Voice, and it's a link down below in the description there. And it encompasses not only support, but a lot of the other tonality qualities. There's a lot of stuff that I'm covering in this that's in that course, and it goes dives deeper into all of these kind of components. So check that out if you want, down below in the description.
You come from West Monroe, Louisiana, y'all.
Come from West Monroe, Louisiana, y'all. I gotta try and still keep that. Hey, let's go back to that part there.
You come from West Monroe, Louisiana, y'all.
Louisiana, y'all. You come from West Monroe, Louisiana, y'all. Like, again, like it sounds silly if I go like this. Oh, it's Louisiana, y'all. It's Louisiana, y'all. When you really take the time to listen to someone's voice, understand kind of what's happening in their vocal tract, with their vocal folds, with their breathing, just take the time to listen to great vocalists and go, what are they doing that I can kind of try to implement? So now I want to share this similarity that I heard between Chris Stapleton and Chris Cornell's voice. Aside from what we've already talked about, there's something else that I think that they're doing, only because when I do this with my voice, I can sing higher. It's a lot easier. I can sing with power up in the high notes. I think it's demonstrated in here. So this is a song, Chris Stapleton, White Horse. Let's listen to this one line. So do you hear that? If you listen to that, does that sound a little bit Cornellish to you? Riding off into the sunset. Riding off into the sunset. There's that space with the pharyngeal constriction. It's like, the sound is there in my throat. Riding off into the sunset. Riding off into the sunset. Riding off into the sunset. There's that little bit of rasp in there as well. Riding off into the sunset. Riding off into the sunset. Okay, so let's compare that with a line from Chris Cornell, an audio slave, in Be Yourself.
Be yourself is all that you can do.
That's all that you can do. To be yourself is all that you can do. Just riding off into the sunset. Be yourself is all that you can do. Riding off into the sunset. To be yourself is all that you can do. Riding off into the sunset. I know they're in different keys and stuff, and I'm probably like going off key, but there's that sound. Riding off into the sunset.
To be yourself is all that you can do.
To be yourself is all that you can do. So what's the other thing that I'm interpreting this? Okay, so it's my own interpretation of what's actually happening, but when I do this particular thing, it helps me to sing higher. And part of it is what I'm doing now is I'm trying to tilt my larynx forward. So the larynx tilts forward, stretches the vocal folds because they run front to back. And when you engage the cricothyroid muscles, which are here, just so you have your Adam's apple here, and it's just a little bit below that. And engaging those muscles, to be yourself is all that you can do. So I'm adding that space in the back and trying to tilt the cricothyroid, or trying to tilt the larynx forward using the cricothyroid muscles. This is something that you can work on to practice. The best way to get there, like kind of as a beginner, if you're not used, if you don't know how to already tilt your larynx, is to yawn.
Like a really deep yawn. Like that.
And it's like really, really deep. Almost like you're trying to inhale your larynx.
To be yourself is all that you can do.
Riding off into the sunset. Riding off into the sunset.
There's that. So there's this particular sound. You'll start to hear it
as you do this. That's a little bit of the,
you know, when I do it,
not only am I opening up in the back, you can hear that sound.
My resonance change, my vocal folds stretch. And because when they're stretched, they need less air really to make them vibrate. These are your vocal folds, they stretch. Okay, if they're looking at from the top, they're loose, kind of just blah, 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 they're flopping around. You stretch them front to back like this, and they come together more. So you need less air to get them to vibrate. That sound there. So the best way to do this, I've found in my own experience, is to just try to with just a little bit of air. Like I mentioned, you don't need a lot of air,
but just to feel that kind of
and even put your fingers just gently on either side of your larynx and feel, if you can feel those muscles engage. And when you tighten them, I found that when I stretch the vocal folds from tilting the larynx, getting into those higher places is where you can really like put some power into that kind of head voice region. Is that reinforced falsetto, whatever you want to call it? Up there. Like, so it's a weird thing when you start to be able to tilt your larynx at will.
To be yourself is all that you can do.
Feel that tilt. Then you can lean the breath up against the vocal folds and they don't blow apart as easy. It's not like a forceful kind of pushing. There's a lot going on inside your vocal tract, your vocal folds with support. There's so much going on. As I mentioned before, there's that link down below for that free course. That's the best place to start working with me if you haven't worked with me before. So you can see there's so much going on in the vocal tract and with support that it's kind of like driving a car. You know, you have all these little things that you have to worry about. You have to push the clutch in and shift the gear, and you have to check the mirrors and look around, okay, and then steer, and then what do you hit the turn signals? There's a lot of stuff going on. But as you learn these things, slowly but surely, and you kind of start skill stacking one on top of the other, everything comes together, and it can come together really quickly. So that's why I put that course down below. Kickstart your voice, and this will get you started on all this stuff, how to understand how to use all of these different components to sing better. Okay, so I hope this helps you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching Rock Your Best Vocals, where your best keeps getting better.